Where do you think the world is going to be 5 years from now?
The world is going to go through a lot of chaos over the next decade. I don't think it's going to affect a lot of us, where we're sitting and what country we're sitting in or what part of the world we're sitting in, but it will affect a lot of people. Everybody can be psychic. Everybody can be predictive also. Being a psychic, I see things or I sense things. You could see things from the past, you can see things from the future, or you could also see a situation that's going to happen in the current state.
Right.
I love the darkness. It's one of my favorite spaces to live in. Some people may even say that, I got an opportunity or a job opportunity and I was so close and then it went. The reason why it went is everybody asks for a life purpose.
Right.
I always say your life purpose is love.
Dan was somebody that I met years back for a reading, and the reading was so accurate that it blew my mind. That's the reason when I started shooting for Soul Safar with Bhaav, I wanted desperately to have Dan on the podcast speaking with us. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Bhaav, for having me here.
Thank you and welcome to Soul Safar with Bhaav. And I'm so excited because I don't know where this conversation is going to go, but I know it's going to be an interesting place.
It'll always be interesting.
Let's jump right into it. You are a psychic reader.
I'm a psychic holistic healer,
Okay.
to be specific.
So when you say you're a psychic holistic healer, what does that actually mean? Can you break that down for our audience, please?
So as a psychic holistic healer, being a psychic, I'm clairvoyant, clairaudient. So that means clairvoyant means I see things or I sense things. Clairaudient means I hear things. And I also kind of sense what the soul wants.
Right.
And then I tell people what they need to hear
Right.
that would work out for their life and their journey. Also, as a holistic healer, I try to give them guidance in the now of things they need to do to change right now to get to where they need to go to.
Since we've mentioned the clairs, will you just break down some of the clairs for our audience, please?
Yeah, so being clairvoyant means that you get visions. You see things. You see, you could see things from the past, you can see things from the future, or you could also see a situation that's going to happen in the current state.
Right.
As a clairaudient, you hear things, which could be you could hear voices, you could hear souls, you can hear information, you can hear letters, you could see, it could be anything actually.
Right.
So as a psychic, your ability to tap into the ether or the unknown is amazing.
Right.
If you're into astrology, they'll say that you're very Ketu. Ketu is part of a gassy serpent. The head is called Rahu and the tail is called Ketu.
Right.
So if you're very Rahu, that means you're very logical. But if you're the tail, that means that you work with Maya. You work with illusion.
Right.
You see things from a different way. You use your third eye. You use so many different variables to get information.
Right.
So it's not necessary that being a psychic is just going to be one specific thing.
Right.
You could have multiple things. Especially with me, I think when I'm doing a session, I don't know where this information is coming from, but I hear things, I see things, I feel things. If you talk about health, I actually feel that health issue
In your body.
in my body, and then I talk to you about it.
Right.
I've had this happen to me multiple times, that I'm sitting with somebody and a flash comes to me. And when the flash comes to me, it's minute, it's in milliseconds. It's not like you're in a trance or anything, it just happens really quickly.
Right.
And then you just say what's on your mind. When I did start off, I did use a pair of cards, and that was to assist at that time because I was just new at this. But I don't use cards anymore. Whatever comes to me, I just say.
Right.
And it only happens whenever I'm in my space.
Right.
or in the environment that I cultivate.
Right.
When you are sitting with me also in a session, I kind of tell people that it's a conversation with your soul. I have a conversation with your soul. I can articulate it back to you and tell you what the soul's saying. It's hard for an individual to understand what their soul's saying to them sometimes.
And why do you think that is? Why is it so difficult to understand what your own soul is saying to you?
Because you've got so much noise. You have noise in your mind. You have noise of other people. You have noise of situations, thoughts. Actually, everybody can be psychic. Everybody can be predictive also. The reason why I can do it is because I come to a place of silence and I don't allow anything in my body, mind, heart, soul, spirit to change what I'm trying to tap into.
Right.
I was saying this earlier to you before we started shooting that I don't eat anything all day.
Right.
I don't drink anything all day until all my sessions are done. Once my sessions are done, then I will have a meal and a drink
Right.
of water.
Yeah. What's interesting is you said that that's because you don't want your energy to be utilized for anything else, not even for digestion. You're utilizing all of your energy to just tap into mine and give me the messages that I'm supposed to receive.
Correct.
So you did speak about everybody can be psychic.
Yes.
And I'm going to ask you for a tool, for a tip for our viewers. If you can give us 3 tips on how to enhance your intuitive or psychic abilities, where should somebody start?
Well, they have to understand that they need to come to a place of silence within themselves, in their mind, in their heart, in their soul. If you can come to a place of silence, then it works for you. Now, to come to a place of silence, you've got to do something. It's not necessarily that you close your eyes and you meditate. That's not it.
Right.
It could be, you could do an activity to do that. You could sing. You could actually dance. You can paint. You could play chess. Anything that will kind of make you kind of not focus on everything else, but only on one thing. When you focus on that one thing, now you're a little bit closer to peace within yourself.
Right.
When you're in that state of focus, you can also come to a place of saying, okay, I'm only focused on this one thing. Now, once I stop focusing on this one thing, I'm blank. So in that blankness, your intuition speaks more to you.
Right. So that's one thing. Is there
The other things that I would tell most people is that would probably do something to cleanse yourself. So take a sea salt shower every day, add a little crushed up sea salt to your body wash and use it. The other thing I would tell everybody to do is light a candle.
Right.
You have to think about that candle as representing your soul, representing you.
Right.
It's not only about making the room smell great or lighting the room,
Right.
but it's also about saying that this represents who you are.
Now, when you speak about light, you cannot not speak about darkness. What is your view? How do you view darkness?
I love the darkness.
Okay.
It's one of my favorite spaces to live in,
Right.
the darkness. I'm not scared of my darkness. I listen to my darkness. A lot of cultures in the world will say that you have to have the good and the bad, or you have to have the yin and the yang in order to have the most balanced life. And so many different deities also represent darkness.
Right.
So many deities represent life, but they all coexist. They
Right.
coexist because they're supposed to coexist.
Right.
They're not supposed to be one or the other.
Right.
People always associate darkness to fear. They associate to sadness. But that's not what it is. It's the most precious of all things.
Right.
Because within darkness, you get quietness. And when you're quiet, you're at stillness. And when you're at stillness, that's when things can grow. That's when things can develop. That's when things can blossom
Right.
through that darkness.
Right.
I mean, look at soil. What color is soil?
Dark. Yeah. You need to plant the seed in darkness for it to grow.
Correct.
Yeah.
And everything else is a bonus. The water is the bonus. The sunlight coming down is the bonus to make that seed turn into a flower or a plant or food or whatever it has to be. Or even if it was something you're manifesting.
Right.
The same thing. Your manifestations also come and start from a place of darkness first.
Okay. I'm very interested in knowing that. What is that place of darkness that your manifestations?
So most people, when they're manifesting, is because they don't have anything and they desire it or they want it.
Right.
So if you look at that, the idea of desire or wanting is also a place of emptiness because you don't have it. Emptiness is darkness.
That's true.
My idea of manifesting is very different from the way that you might read it in other books or other manifestation tools. My idea of manifestation is that you think about it once,
Right.
and that's it, and never come back to it. If you think about it once, then it's going to happen.
Right.
Something that's happened in my life recently, actually.
Right.
I was planning a trip to Delhi, and I said that it would be nice if this was all taken care of. In 2 hours, somebody called me and said, "Hey, we have an event. We'd want you to come to the event. We'll fly you down from wherever you are." And I was in Dubai, and we're also taking care of your hotel stay, and we're going to pay you your fee.
Wow.
And that was all done, and it was in Delhi, and I got to go to Delhi, and everything was taken care of.
There's clearly something you are doing that somebody else is not. Who there could be you are Dan, there's somebody else who's say Project A.
Project
Okay.
A.
So now Project A is saying the same thing, but may not find it manifest so seamlessly
Be-
to him or her. What's the difference?
Because Project A doesn't detach from it. You've got to detach from it.
So you
And you have to let go of the expectation of it.
right.
You have to be like, if this is what you desire in your means, right? I mean, you could say that, I want to be the president of whatever.
Right.
That's not really in your means. Unless
Right.
you're working towards it, then it's in your means.
Right.
But if it's within your means. So when I wanted to, I didn't want to manifest.
Right.
It was not a state of manifestation that I did this in.
Right.
I did it, it was a desire
Right.
that I wanted this to happen in Delhi, and then I just said it, and then I dropped it. I said it would just be good.
Right.
That's all I said. It
Right.
would be good.
Right.
Then I didn't think about it. I went online, checked tickets and stuff like that, and then 2 hours, somebody's calling me about it. But this is a part of manifestation. So why doesn't it work for other people is because they worry about it, they talk to other people about it, they keep on thinking about it. All these things work against them. They almost create nazar or bad luck for themselves or an evil eye for themselves because they keep on doing this.
Right.
So what I would tell people, especially when it comes to manifestation or a desire you want, or if you're getting something, some people may even say that, I got an opportunity or a job opportunity and it was so close and then it went. The reason why it went is you probably told 5 other people about it and you kept on thinking about it. So what happens is you didn't allow the gestation period to happen. So gestation period is a period that allows things to grow.
Right.
So that's in the scientific manner, but in the spiritual realm, you also have a gestation period where you
Right.
have to make things grow.
Right.
So you have to allow things to kind of expand and become something. Without you, when you tell somebody about it, it's like you poke a hole into it,
Right.
and air goes out of it.
Right.
Then you tell another person, it pokes a hole in it, and air goes out of it. So then you don't have.
That much power and energy.
It doesn't happen. It
Right.
won't happen.
Right.
It's also when people go to a doctor after they're pregnant, the doctor also tells them, do not tell anybody for 3 months.
Right.
Let the gestation period happen. Let the first trimester get over it. Then tell whoever you have to.
Right. Makes sense.
So it makes sense.
I feel that self-love is one of the things that most people I know lack. And yet there's a concept of self-love where they say if I go to the spa, if I go for a massage, if I take myself out for dinner, I love myself. But I feel at the core, most people don't really treasure and love themselves. Why do you think that is?
I think most of what you're talking about is surface level. It's not deep down.
Right.
Or we don't understand what love is, because what happens is, while growing up, we read these books and these narratives. We watch beautiful films,
Right.
and they tell us what love is.
Right.
It doesn't mean we felt love. Like, you'll watch any of these movies, be it an English movie or a Bollywood movie or a South Indian movie, and they'll have epic love stories. And then you're like, yeah, that's the love story I want.
Yeah.
But no, is that the love story you're supposed to be with? your soul probably is going to say no. There's another love story out there.
Yeah.
And then you get infatuated. Then you overthink about things. Then you keep on talking about it with so many people. It never happens.
If I have to ask you, what is love? What is love?
Love is when you do not question, undermine, or seek. Love is when you are at a place of contentment with yourself, that you can sit there and just smile to yourself, that you can hold yourself, you can speak to yourself, that you don't feel a lack of anything. And some people will say, hey, but I would love somebody in my life to complete me. Yeah. Nobody's going to complete you until you complete yourself. Once you complete yourself, and once you're full of love that flows out of the glass. We were talking about glass half full, half empty, but this is when the glass is overflowing. That love is for everybody else. Right. Water that's in that glass is all love for you. Right. So you cultivate that, and then that's when somebody new comes into your life. That's when the right person comes into your life. Right. But if I'm lacking emotional stability, I'm lacking physical awareness, I'm lacking spiritual thing, and then I have other people that come in to fill those gaps in for me, then I'm not doing full justice to myself. And that's also saying that you don't love yourself. Correct. I think we keep on waiting for what's going to happen next, or what happened in the past, and we keep on comparing. And when we compare things, that's the downfall. You know, and when we're waiting for things, that's the downfall. Right. So when you're in the moment with yourself and nothing else matters, doesn't mean that you're watching a TV show and you're getting that love, or you're listening to music, or you're listening to a podcast. Yeah. This podcast. Or this podcast. That doesn't mean that you're loving yourself because you're doing it. It's pretty funny too, right? A lot of people say you have to have self-love, you have to have self-love, but nobody tells you what is self-love. Exactly. Nobody tells you how to get to self-love. Right. So in sessions with me, I kind of help people get to how they have to get to self-love. There's no map that everyone should follow. Everybody's map's different. Everybody's way of doing things is different. I will tell you how to meditate differently, but if you speak to me about somebody else, person A would have a different way I would have a different way to tell that person to meditate. Right. So it's almost like one size doesn't fit all. It doesn't. That's why you got to start thinking that what works best for me. So I'm going to explain something else. This is, when I look at love, I always think of love as being the divine feminine. The divine feminine is also connected to your soul. The divine feminine is also connected to your spirit. Right. Your divine masculine is your mind, your ego, ambition. Right. You know, so this has to feel it. Right. And when I say this, it's not necessarily that your heart feels it, but it's your soul that feels it. Your soul needs to feel that love. Your soul has to be like, I'm in such bliss with myself that I could be whatever I want to be. Right. Years ago, I was at home and I was just making a sandwich, and I was drinking a glass of orange juice, and I had old Hindi Bollywood songs playing in the background. And a friend called me and said, what are you doing? I said, oh, I'm just making a sandwich and have my thing, glass of juice. And they're like, oh, come, we'll go out, you'll have fun. And I said, actually, I'm in my bliss. Right. He's like, what does that mean? I was like, I'm in my bliss. I'm in this bubble of love that I've created for myself, that every piece of me is feeling so good. Right. And it was just me making a sandwich and having a glass of juice and listening to some Bollywood. Yeah, that's perfect. Old Bollywood songs. Yeah. In November of 2023, World Health Organization actually declared loneliness as one of the most widely spread reasons for depression. And a lot of people can feel lonely even while they are surrounded by people. Yeah. So, what is your tip to somebody? How do you deal with loneliness, or how not to feel lonely? Loneliness strikes us in so many different ways. We all get lonely. I mean, I even get lonely right now. Right. But what I do when I'm in my lonely state is I'll go and gravitate to something that's going to make me feel different in that moment. And it's always going to be music for me. Music is always going to either remind me, inspire me, or heal me. And I use music as a foundation to help me.
Right.
But that works for me.
Right.
For you, it could be being barefoot in a room and having music play and the windows open with lots of light coming in, and you're just dancing and swirling and twirling and almost like a Sufi dancer. And that could be you getting away from your loneliness.
Right.
And after you're done that, if you did what I just told you, do you think that would have worked if you were in a lonely space?
It definitely would. Was that a vision?
That is a vision. But I'm saying that for you, that would work.
Right.
Because that's part of you.
Right.
When loneliness hits, you need to figure out what is your tool to make sure that you don't feel that loneliness
Right.
in that moment.
Right.
You don't wait for loneliness to build.
Right. Just before we started shooting the podcast, we were talking about there is a similarity in how you and I both kind of arrived at the path that's laid out in front of us.
Correct.
For you, I think it was the passing of your dad.
Yes.
And for me, it was the passing of my partner.
Yes.
And that's what made us turn the corner. And it makes me question that at a soul level, why did our soul decide to go through this sort of trauma to start its journey of awakening?
I think the soul doesn't look and use words like trauma and sadness and hurt. The soul only wants to experience.
Right.
And wants to experience everything. The soul doesn't say that. Some souls may say, I only want to experience happiness or understand that, but there's a lot of souls that say, hey, in order to us to evolve and grow, that we need to experience all these little difficulties in our life.
Right.
And then you grow from that, right? In that moment of that person passing, or when that person was going through the tragedy that they're going through, you weren't thinking about that you're going to have this podcast. I didn't think I was going to be a holistic healer, but the beauty of my father's death is it gave birth to the holistic healer.
Yes.
And his death gave birth to something new. I don't look at his death as tragedy anymore. I look at it as that it created something new. And my father was such a man that he would help so many people. He wasn't a therapist or anything. He was a Punjabi, very dedicated man that was a film distributor in North America. And people would ask him for, they want advice on this or advice on that. And they would go to him and he would tell him. But I know that I can sense him around me still, that he will always feel very proud that I'm helping so many people.
Right.
And I started with maybe one person, and now it's turned into almost like 10,000 people around the world right now that I help. But I know each time I do a session and it's over, that I know that he is smiling down at me or smiling at me and saying, I'm happy you did that.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful way of looking at it, Dan.
So I look at it that way.
Yeah.
I think that in your case, with your partner going, I think this was also the therapy that you needed to come out of it, to feel a different way. And it's something that will also inspire so many other people. Right. Not to say your dance doesn't inspire people and people don't love your art, but this is another way of looking at things. And this is something that you probably never thought about, but it became therapeutic for you.
Right.
It became engaging for you. The conversations that you're having, the way you're articulating yourself is quite different from where you were before.
100%.
Right? And the way that you look at life now is very different.
Right.
That you look at, I need to be in the moment, I need to live in the moment, I need to make things happen now and not wait for it.
Right.
So with you, I also feel like this is just the start of a journey.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's so much more coming.
Okay, all I can say after listening to that is I'm ready to receive, and I'm ready to I'm just surrendering to whatever's coming.
Well, I know there's tons of things coming for you right now, and it's gonna be amazing.
Oh my God, I have a follow-up question, and I may or may not keep it on the episode.
Okay.
But when you say there are tons of things coming, what? Give me like an indication.
I mean, indication is, I feel, if I have to give you a quick psychic prediction, if you're ready to hear it,
Yeah.
I think there's 5 things happening for you. One is that I think you're going to end up having a lot more speaking engagements, and you're going to have, I know you're doing this podcast and it's getting shot, but I also feel, which I spoke to you 2 seconds ago, I said you need to direct more because I see directing happening. The other thing is writing's going to happen for you too. That's going to start very quickly too, which would be very therapeutic for you. And I feel like there's a lot of abundance coming into your life within the next 6 months. But I also feel that there seems to be some new energy that also can come into your life, which is going to be very interesting.
Amazing.
Which will be in the form of love.
Okay.
Yeah. But it doesn't necessarily have to be romantic love.
Right, right.
But it's love.
Right. Since you are a psychic, I'm going to ask you a predictive question.
Go for it.
Where do you think the world is going to be 5 years from now?
See, the world is going to go through a lot of chaos over the next decade. And for the majority of people, you're going to see things kind of like break apart. You're going to see that, the alliances that will happen. People will change different things. You'll see that sustainability will be very important. You'll see that the way that how we consume will change also. You'll see there's a lot more natural disasters that are going to happen. Saying that, there's also this evolution of consciousness that happens and spiritualism that happens. And so instead of being religious, people will start becoming more spiritual. When we talk about spiritualism bonds everybody together. When we talk about religion segregates us. So you'll start seeing that heightened of that. There is a lot that's going to happen in 5 years, but there's a lot of change, which I don't think it's going to affect a lot of us, where we're sitting and what country we're sitting in or what part of the world we're sitting in, but it will affect a lot of people. It's going to affect a lot of people in the West. It'll affect people in Europe. There's a lot of things that are going to happen over the next few years.
Right.
What I would tell everybody is create your atmosphere, create your bubble, create
Safe
what you
space.
want, create your safe space, do the work you love, be around the people you love too. Don't overthink things, right? You're going to have to start looking at things differently, from water to food. The way that we travel will change too. The way that we consume food will change too. The way we interact will change too. Politically, also, you're going to see that spiritualism will become more heightened politically.
Wow. Okay.
So that's going to be something that's going to be in the next 5 years.
That's quite interesting.
I can give you a prediction for most people for the next year.
Great. Please go ahead.
I think a lot of people's luck will start changing from mid-January onwards, and a lot of things that people have been desiring will start happening, long as it's in their means.
Right.
But there's a lot of luck that's changing for a lot of people next year. Yeah.
Go for it. Is all I would tell them. When you talk about people, and because you heal so many people, I've also realized that I have noticed that people have this great resistance to healing. Like they know what's good for them, and yet they resist the one thing that they need to do or let go of, or anything that will amplify their healing. Why do you think there's so much of resistance?
Because I think they don't know how they're supposed to heal, and they feel that there's going to be so many different things they have to do to heal themselves.
Right.
Healing's actually quite simplistic.
It is.
The simpler it is, the easier it is for you to change.
Right.
The more complicated you make it, the harder it's going to be.
Right.
So it depends on the type of healing. It depends on the type of person you are too, right? Healing, we can't make it generic and just say healing in general, right? There's so many different ways of healing.
Yeah.
You've got to curate your life.
Right.
If you curate your life, then you're going to be the best version of yourself.
And I think the only thing that stops us from being the best versions of ourselves is the insecurities that we harbor deep within us.
Correct.
And I know a lot of people who have bunches of insecurities. What is the one thing you tell people? How do you start letting go of these insecurities?
I think if you stop comparing and you stop talking to people about the same thing over and over again,
Right.
it's the noise, right? You keep on getting this noise.
Right.
So your insecurities also stem because of others. You
Right.
feel insecure because of somebody else.
Right.
You're not feeling insecure because of yourself. And you have to look at what you're insecure about. Did you work on it? Did you work on the insecurity? Did you do anything different? Did you change your perspective? Did you change the way you're thinking about it? Did you change the way your actions are? If you're not doing that, change is very important, right?
Right.
And everybody's resistance to change, right? Because change is the unknown. You don't know what's going to happen. And that unknown is the problem. I think that's the other reason why people come to me for a session, is because they want to know what's going to happen.
Right.
And as long as they know that, then it's easy for them to say, okay, well, if I do this, then this is going to happen. Great.
Right.
So that's the main thing about, when you're looking at yourself, you've got to think about change being something that's not fearful.
There is this phrase in the Bhagavad Gita that says, Atato Brahma Jigyasa, which means that now is the time to inquire or seek the absolute truth. What it actually means is that a soul is going to continue reincarnating till it finds its absolute purpose. And I'm sure a lot of people come to you asking you, what do you think is the purpose of my life?
Tons.
What is your take on purpose?
So everybody asks for a life purpose.
Right.
And I always tell them, your life purpose is actually a feeling. Think about that feeling that you want to attain, and that's your life purpose. And then whatever you do to attain that feeling is your life journey.
Right.
To attain that feeling.
Right.
So I always say your life purpose is a feeling. I don't think it's
a thing.
I never think it's a thing.
Yeah. So Dan, we took a few questions from our crew because they were so excited about a psychic healer coming onto set, and I'm going to ask you these questions.
Sure.
So a lot of people in their 20s and 30s have a lot of addictions, like smoking, drinking, vaping is the new thing now, and it's almost become like a social norm. If somebody wants to break free from their addiction, what would you say to them?
Well, you have to think about what's triggering you to have that addiction, right? Most people smoke or vape or do any of these things when they're either nervous, upset, or wanting to be a part of a tribe or part of a community.
Right.
And they keep on doing this. The idea is to be having that kind of ability to say, what's good for me doesn't mean it's good for you, but it's good for me, and I'm going to not do this. That's the hardest part, right? Because if I've been smoking for so long,
right,
it's hard for me to change it unless I have a health scare, or unless somebody close to me, something happens to them. Then you kind of change, right? You wait for that tragedy to happen.
Right.
So think about the triggers, right? What is triggering you? If something's triggering you, like stress is triggering you to smoke, to
Right.
drink, then you need to work on stress. If it's something like, I'm meeting person A and I'm meeting you, and both of you are indulging in something,
Right.
and then I'm like, okay, to be a part of this, I'm also going to have it too.
Right.
What happens is we're just creating more of a pattern within ourselves, and it's the pattern. You have to break that pattern. In order to break that pattern is to say, hey, why am I doing this? Am I doing this to fit in? So do I not have enough self-esteem that I can just be there being by myself?
Right.
And most people do it because they're numbing themselves, or there's this sensation you get, right? When you're drinking, there's a sensation. When you're smoking, there's a sensation, and you get used to that sensation, and then you think that sensation is a good sensation,
Right.
when actually it's not a good sensation.
Right.
So the easiest way to stop is to say, hey, why am I doing this? Question yourself. The more you question yourself, the better it is.
Right.
Until you don't question it.
Mm.
But this is a good question.
Religion and spirituality are two almost opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
If somebody who's really religious wants to start making this journey towards spirituality,
Yeah.
what would you say to them? What's a good starting point?
Well, see, spirituality is more of a collective consciousness, right? And that's where everybody is in the same kind of boat of rising their thought process, or their they're evolving at a certain rate, right? Spiritualism is a way of life. Spiritualism is how you actually attain peace.
Right.
Everything within spiritualism is pertaining to peace. Religion is very different. Religion is doctorate or stories, or it's telling us how to live.
Right.
That we should follow a ideology that somebody else has told us, which is only for our sector of people and not your sector of people.
Right.
Right? A lot of people will say, when we talk about retrogrades, or if we talk about the moon, or if we talk about the stars, and we talk about horoscopes and stuff like that, that's spiritualism. No, it's not spiritualism.
It's not. Yeah.
It comes under the same realm of religion.
Right.
And it comes back into, this idea of somebody again is telling us what to do.
Yeah.
Spiritualism comes from the divine feminine.
Right.
Religious comes from the divine masculine.
Masculine.
Because it has a lot more logic in it.
Right. Yeah.
Divine feminine is organic.
Right. Yeah. Makes sense.
Spiritualism is organic.
Thank you so much, Dan, for doing this, for coming here and answering these questions. And your perspective, I've realized the way you look at everything is so unique. And I think it's not just made me think, it's made everybody on this set think. And thank you so much and giving me your time. And I'm looking forward to having you again on another episode of Soul Safar with Bhaav.
Totally looking forward to that. But remember, just keep it simple. The simpler you keep life, the better it's going to be.
100%.
We are going to be back in 2 weeks with yet another episode of Soul Safar with Bhaav. Now healing has a face.